Hi guys, James here for Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, my friend, my enemy, my constant companion. Day 37. 37? 47. 47. Um, yeah, so... Okay, so the thing about having my version of chronic fatigue syndrome, at least, is like I will go through periods where my brain will just twee. And I mentioned this before, and it can be hilarious sometimes. It can also not. But the hilarious ones come from like because all like everyone does this, but so if I'm talking and my brain cuts off, my mouth will like, it's okay brain, I've got you here, and it will start talking for me. And sometimes it's really good because it's in the right context, it's everything that I need it to do. I run on automatic, it's great. However, when it's not the right context, when it's not the right situation, it can cause some interesting new conversation starters. So our brains will do this anyway. Like in the martial arts, if I have someone come along to one of our classes and I'm watching them, if I'm teaching them something, you might hear me say, "Hey, have you done martial arts before?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, but you know, karate when I was like 10 years old." And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's showing up." And they're like, "Why?" It's because your brain chucks it out there so that you don't stick out. Because if you stick out, you get et. So it's like, hey, it's a survival thing. So like, hey, you're in a class, we need to blend in. We'll do what we know to do so that way I can do a thing. And the only thing I know how to do is this karate stepping, which doesn't work with what we do. And so they can, it really accentuates what they used to know. And so their brain will just throw out, do this! And you'll be fine, you'll be safe, no one will know. But, you know, of course I'm going to know. It's very, very obvious that it's different to what we're doing. And the same thing will happen with talking, and you may have experienced this before. It's like what you train. So if you're used to being on the phones and you've answered, "Hi, this is James from insert, how can I help you today?" And that's your intro, and then your outro is and thank you very much for calling us. I hope you have a really good day. So if you've done that like 100 times a day, it drills in. You know, your brain's like, okay, I'm taking the information. Mouth's like, hey, don't worry, brain, you take a break. I'll talk for you. But when you go in, introduce a new environment, it requires a new intro, outro, then it can get quite funny. And when you get stressed, you notice this happen a lot. So I was with a client and I heard a well person start experiencing this. Like they were behind me and I could hear that they were starting to panic, they were starting to get anxious, and their words were starting to slip into past dialogue that was what they had used before in a previous role. Now, if I had have been allowed to or been, say, the team leader or responsible for that person, I would have gone over there, explained to them what's happening, and showed them how to get out of it, and they would have been fine. They didn't work themselves out of it, they worked themselves into it further, and then just got up and left. So that happens for a normal person. Now, you add in chronic fatigue syndrome with that, and then you got like foggy brain. Everyone talks about foggy brain. And it just feels like fog in your brain. The other one I get, and I didn't hear it so often from others, but now and again I hear it, is like it's like a slippery rock. It's really weird. It's a dark background. There's a rock in there. It's like a river stone. It's lovely, it's beautiful, it shines with a lovely wet sheen, and that's what my brain feels like sometimes. Like it's not absorbing anything and it's not giving out. It's just sitting there. Like you can't get any purchase on it. You're not going to be able to pick it up. It's just And that's what my brain will feel like sometimes. And when it feels like both, it's just a lovely experience. Sarcasm's a poor form of wit, but sometimes it's good to use. So it's just that kind of rah. And the reason I wanted to share that is because it's a way for me to bridge the gap for someone who's normal and who's someone who's got chronic fatigue syndrome. So for people with chronic fatigue syndrome, it's good to know that it's a normal thing. This kind of blah 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 word salad kind of thing, I think is an expression for it. And then, you know, someone who's well, like, hey, have you ever been really anxious and you've just like the words just tumble out, you can't, there's not a lot going between brain and mouth, like, have you ever felt that? Like, oh yeah, well that's a regular occurrence for us, like that's a thing. And then you're like brain fog, you imagine just like you're trying to recall something but it's not there. It's really hard to describe. If you've got it, it's really easy to understand. If you don't have it, it's hard for me to try and describe it, because like it is what it's pretty much what it is that I'm saying it is. It's like a fog sitting in your brain. There's nothing there to draw on. The slippery stone is the same thing. There's nothing to draw on. There's no purchase. It's just sits there. You know, I've got nothing to go on. But today I've done a lot of talking to a lot of people, and really abusing that whole men speak less words than females during the day. I spoke a lot of words today, and my words are starting to slur a bit. I'm having to really concentrate on the ability to articulate. And these pauses that you hear me doing aren't just pauses for me talking, they're pauses because I'm constantly checking in. So over the years I've had to develop the ability to constantly check in, like, am I articulating properly? Am I opening my mouth? Am I saying what I want to say? Am I getting the message across? Or am I just sounding like blah 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 blah, word salad? And sometimes it's just frustrating, like there's no working around it. It'll be like, hey, can you pass me that shirt? And what will come out is, can you grab that? Like, you have to kind of deconstruct and build it up around. So like, I might not be able to say shirt, but I can say, can you give me that article of clothing that goes over my top? You know, that kind of thing. You know, can you hand me that? Might turn into something completely different. When I was younger, my vocabulary was quite different, and I would use slightly archaic words because I found it easier to convey my message. It was easier to get it out by using slightly archaic words, and people used to give me grief for it, not understanding that it was just, I need to be able to communicate. The only way I can communicate sometimes is by using these words, because they're easier for me to articulate and to express myself. Yes, they're slightly archaic, but you understand what I'm talking about, you know, he's off. So there's a lot of weird side effects of chronic fatigue syndrome. And the thing about this is, like, it might not be chronic fatigue syndrome, it might be I have some sort of brain-tongue thing, whatever that is. But it is a common thing with all people who have chronic fatigue syndrome. And it does crop up a lot. Like, you on the forum, you scan through 10 and it'll either be like pain, I hate life, what's the cure, does anyone else have foggy brain? How do I cure foggy brain? Well, that kind of thing. So it's just learning the workarounds. And one of my workarounds when I was younger was slightly more archaic vocabulary. Or sometimes I'll just, like, I can't articulate it and I have to deconstruct what it is that I want, and it will actually turn into something bigger, but I can get it out. Or other times I just can't. I like, because the brain is just going twee. Okay, so it's good to know that it's a normal thing, like it will happen to normal people, the being anxious, the survival mechanism, reverting back to past scripts and stuff like that. And then you can kind of tie it in, like there's a similar kind of feeling when you get like the foggy brain, and that your brain will just like, your mouth will kick in, and sometimes it doesn't fit with the moment or the context, and it can produce some interesting results. Very interesting results. If you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, it's the same thing as if you don't have chronic fatigue syndrome. You just want to be mindful of what it is, check in with yourself, and mindfully work through the process of improving it, as opposed to berating yourself like, oh, you're stupid, or oh, you can't do that, or oh, you're no good, and rah, rah, rah. None of that is productive. That will not help. That doesn't build your confidence up. It just kind of reinforces with how bad you acted that moment. Okay? Just because you do a stupid thing, or stupid sounding thing, doesn't mean that you're stupid. Alright? You're human. You're going to do lots of stupid things. Very few people are actually stupid. That kind of thing. So it's just be kind on yourself and work your way through it. And it's okay. So today it was off the cuff, and I had these pauses. I just want to share with you that, yeah, have them. I get paid for talking. I get paid to teach people how to talk. It's the field, and I'm quite good at being articulate and getting a message across and doing all this, and then like I show you these moments where it's just insert twee. Alright, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Like, share, subscribe, notification button, and thank you very much for letting me share with you today.